Today, we're going to help you with your spotlight caches by ranking everything that's coming this month, next month, and even looking at September. So that way you can definitely plan ahead. Also, hoarding. It's one of the biggest topics going on right now. So we're going to take a look at what everybody's saying and give some feedback as well as sort of an opinion. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are in the comments below. So the topic of hoarding is coming up because of the spotlight caches, everything on the ladder. Did a video on that, a long one just the other day. Go check that out if you want the details. Lots of debate over whether this new system is good, bad, what it means, etc. I'm trying to avoid that a little bit in this topic, but there are some tweets out there. Marvel Snap News, shout out to them, is specifically at Marvel Snap Bugle. They do a pretty decent job of covering any topics on the Discord, etc. And someone asked about hoarding. And basically the idea now is that because the spotlight caches are the part of the system, you need to hoard to get 4 of those spotlight caches in order to make sure that you get the card that you want, because there's a 1 in 4 chance of getting them, so you don't just want to open them randomly. This person says, you stated now it's only hoard 10% instead of all reserves. I'd argue that Spotlight encourages hoarding much more on the reserves. I disagree with that part because I think, and this is part of this conversation, is the reserves, not the Spotlight ones, the other ones, they're trash. Like, I hope that they change them because there is literally no incentive to open those anymore. I was doing a video, I used to love doing those videos where it's an opening, look at what I can get some stuff, and now it's just like, this, nobody's gonna, I don't care to do this. No one's, if I don't care to do this, nobody's going to care to watch this. So I stopped. So I don't like the reserves. I hope they change them, but we'll see. They can't give a card 1 in 40 before, and the token rewards are so meaningless, it takes months to actually get something from them. It's either open them and be disappointed every single day, or hold them and hope one day they will actually be rewarding to open them. Was the intent of the change to make reserves more likely to be opened? If so, how does that seem to be playing out with the rewards are so much less valuable than before? So we've got an answer from Glenn here. He says, if you want to hold your earned caches forever in the hopes they improve, that's your call. I mean, it's certainly, Glenn's right. He's right. That's your call. They might never, ever get improved. And if you hold on to them and never use them, you get nothing. You lose. But I also think that, like I mentioned, I was doing this and it just felt like this isn't making an impact for anything that I'm going to do. I haven't done the math behind it. I'll look at that, but just the feel behind it definitely didn't feel exciting, which was sort of sad. Like, you want, when you do things, to feel a little bit exciting, and it just didn't. He also says it's a very different situation from the previous system, where it was often correct to deprive yourself of opening any of them, sometimes months at a time, in order to maximize your access to cards. And his point here is the old system made it so that everybody would want to hoard until a new card came out, and then they'd open to try to get that card as their series 4. And that made sense. And a lot of people did that. I know me, obviously, as a content creator, did it. I know anybody who's done with series 4 or close to it, they did it. The only time you really didn't do it is if you were climbing the ladder and needed a whole bunch of series 3. An individual normal cache is worse to open now than it was, sure. Yeah, so he admits that and he knows that. But is opening 36 of those and 4 spotlight caches worse than 40 under the old system? We don't think so. And opening those 36 sooner rather than later won't negatively affect your new card acquisition rates anymore either. Now, he's right about this. Hate me all you want, but he's actually right about this. And again, in the video that I shot the other day and looking at the math on this, Lauren, Equinox, they're all doing this thing where you look at it and you're like, the worst case scenario now was basically the best case scenario before. So, I mean, that in itself is better. You can't, yeah, you could argue that, but it's, you can't argue it. The part that sucks about it is the agency, and it's not as good as it was before. If you wanted a specific card, basically it'd come around every 8 days in the token shop. Now, you don't know if when a card's going to show up that you could get if it's series 4 or 5. You just don't know. It just depends on the spotlight caches. Now, could you target it for that spotlight cache? Sure, but it could be 1, 2, 3, 4. You just don't know how many months it could be. I also think that a part of this is that people are upset about is they don't know when cards are going to drop. I've been talking about this on Twitter with the same people, Lauren, Equinox, etc. And I do think that eventually, once they get a pool of about 30 to 40-ish, hopefully closer to that mid-30s range of series 4 and series 5 cards, that's when we're going to see the drops happen more regularly again. And we're at about 25 now, so I wouldn't expect any drops until probably September. And then if you go through here to read the comments, and look, it's the internet, so nobody who loves things typically goes out there and says, oh, I love this, I'm here to love this. It's typically people who are upset, and that is what you find here. Someone's talking about, I will stop opening them because it's no longer possible to open. 50 tokens, less credits. They will necessarily change these ridiculous lots. It's stupid to hoard caches now. You just hoard every spotlight until there's a week you want it. The specific spotlight card or variants, which by the schedule, I know going to waste mine on Echo and then hoard until September. And that's sort of what's happening is everybody's looking at what they want, hoarding. And so it's like, is this the right thing to do? Does this feel good? This person, Benjamin Roller, says, well, they thought that there's more people hoarding now because some people might not have been hoarding before and now they're sort of forced to. This person, Chris, also says, there's so little value in the reserves now, there's not much point in opening them. Might as well save and hope they improve in content in the future. Spotlight caches obviously should be hoarded too. You need to save for the good weeks. And that's right. And the first part of this, again, is the part where I'm like, if so many people are actually feeling this way, that's not what you want in a game. You don't want something to feel so bad that it just you just don't even waste your time with it. One of the bigger problems is the new system feels unintuitive and feels like crap. How is any casual player going to be able to feel good about any of this? Now, this is actually a good point. I was actually talking to somebody about this the other day. If somebody is a casual player, they might not care. So as somebody who's non-casual, you don't necessarily have to go out and defend them and say, well, how are they going to be good at this? If they're casual, they don't care. They're casual. That's the whole point of being casual. So they'll just open whenever they open. If they actually cared to optimize, they will go out and search and find it. It's not really hard to figure out, hey, this is the spotlight schedule and this is what I want to start a target. But that makes you a non-casual, right? Because then you're starting to think about what you actually want. So I get both sides of this argument here, but at the end of the day, you still want everybody to feel good about what's happening. Some more comments about how the new regular caches are so bad, you don't want to open it. I even liked that one because it's true. And then a lot of argument about, the card acquisition, etc. This is the part I want to focus on again. Brian here requotes the tweet from Marvel Snap News that we just read. While this is 100% true that those 40 boxes on average are better than before, having 36 of them being guaranteed to be useless and not even have that glimmer of hope attached to them is still a problem. And I think this summarizes it the best, is that you've got 36 out of 40 that just don't feel good at all. Like there's nothing in them that feels good. You certainly need the credits to help and you have more chances to get those credits, but that's it. I mean, yeah, I guess a variant so you could increase the variant chances. Gosh, those tokens, when you get 50 tokens, it's just, it is a serious punch to the gut. And Zombie Go Nom Nom sums it up pretty well here to me, is they feel so bad, I'm honestly thinking of just not opening any of the regular ones anymore until the next eventual economy update. The only real downside is slightly less credits, but given that they only drop 150 to 200 now, it might not even feel that bad. And he's not wrong. He's just not. Personally, you can see I've got quite a bit of stuff saved up in there because, like I said, I started opening them during the video and just stopped. And we're going to jump over to the Spotlight Cache ranking here after this last point. And this really is sort of the casual aspect, is why is hoarding the only option now? How do I obtain new cards if my Spotlight Cache reward is a variant every week? And this sort of is alluding to the fact that they open this Spotlight Cache every week. And it's not necessarily intuitive. And that's where the people talk about the casuals and all that sort of thing. And someone can still be casual and want to do well, but not want to have to plan something in a game. And I think you do have to sort of open it up for that type of player. You can be someone who just doesn't care and plays a game, and you can be a casual who cares, but doesn't want to have to research or know something. And that's where you think you find where it's those people shouldn't have to figure out that what the Spotlight schedule is, that they have to hoard for a specific week, unless it shows in game somewhere. They have to go to Discord or somewhere else. That typically is a problem. It's the concept of the internet. You don't want anybody to have to click too many links to get to where you want them to go. And ultimately, at the end of the day, don't you want as many people as doing that as possible? Now, the flip side of that is the gaming company might only want the people who invest enough to click on the links because those are likely the people who are going to spend money. And I get that. Glenn does say over time, you'll receive 25% more new cards from every of the caches. Assume you don't have every card, quote unquote, every week is highly improbable, even without hoarding. If you'd like to be able to aim for more specific ones, you can stock up on the caches. But again, you shouldn't have to tell that to people. There should be something in game that makes it intuitive. This is less hoarding than the previous system, which is often incentivized holding all of your reserves, not just 10% of them, until a card entered Series 4. Many of those reserves were converted into tokens, which were also often hoarded. And he's right. He's right. They're trying to avoid hoarding. This does that to an extent, but I have to admit that the caches, the regular caches, are just so bad that people are just going to hoard them because they don't care to open them. All right, so let's get to the more important aspect of this, and that's the spotlights and ranking them. Before I get to them, I did want to address these cards that I have in the ranking because it's going to matter. Now, we don't know the spotlight full caches that we're going to get with these, meaning like what comes with Alioth, what comes with Mobius, what comes with Ivana. But I think it's important to think about these cards because it takes a full month to save for 1 week. So you might want to factor in what you're doing this month and next month to decide what you might do in September. So remember, Alioth on reveal destroys all enemy cards played here this turn, including unrevealed. Mobius and Mobius, a big part of this, well, I'll get to in a second. He's ongoing. Your costs can't be increased. Your opponent's costs can't be reduced. How does this interact with Wave? That is a huge question. If Mobius trumps Wave, this card is top tier, because you can use it for your advantage and you can prevent your opponent from messing with you. Ravana Renslayer ongoing, your cost with 1 or less power costs 1 less. Next month, the August season pass is Dakin. This is something we want to talk about as well. He's a 3/4 on reveal. Add the Muramasa shard to your hand. What does that mean? It's a 1/1. When this is discarded or destroyed, double Dakin's power. So Dakin becomes a 3/8. You don't have to play this card. You can discard it in your hand if you have Silver Samurai, which is a 4/5. On reveal, each player discards the lowest power card from their hand. Power. So if you want to do that, where you make sure you hit your Muramasa card, you got to make sure you don't have any 0s or 1 powers in hand. So this is going to be the graphic I put together. There's different tiers to it. And as I go through this, the thing to understand, this is going to be so insanely subjective because of a couple things. What cards do you have? If you don't have certain cards, some of these are going to get ranked higher. What type of player are you? What type of archetypes you like? If you like a certain archetype more than other, you might lean into Null. You might lean into Jeff. If you don't have High Evolutionary or Darkhawk, that one might come up for you, even though Legion might not be a card that you do want. So understand those subjective natures on this. Having trying to thought of those, this is how I ranked them. Again, I've got it save for, which is just like, look, these seem really good. Solid, which are solid. Good niche, meaning it's like this is a little bit more specific. And then an easy skip, which is like, honestly, I wouldn't even necessarily look at this one. All right, so starting at the bottom, we've got the week of 8/8. This is Galactus, Nimron, and Spider-Ham. Now, while these cards can be decent, I think as far as saving and understanding that you've got to save for quite a while to focus a week, this is a week that I'm definitely going to skip. I think Spider-Ham's a great card, and I think Nimrod's got his uses, as does Galactus. But when you're looking at it compared to everything else, I think this is something that I'm just not going to focus on. Next up, we've got the good niche section. The lowest ranked one I've got here is the week of 8/15, which is Lady Deathstrike, MODOK, and Stature. Lady Deathstrike is a 5/3 and on reveal destroys each card here with less power than this. So basically anything 2 or less. It could be good to clear goblins. It might be good to take out Draculas or Iron Man or anything along those lines, or Mystiques or Patriots. So it does have a solid use and probably could be used all over the place, but it is a sort of niche tech card, and you've got to really think about where you might want to play that. MODOK is a great discard card. Again, it's niche. You have it. If you don't, it's decent. Stature's fallen off a little bit, but I'll get to her in a little bit as well with one of the other rankings. Next up here, I have the week of 9/5. This is a season pass week with Jeff, Ghost Spider, and Null. Now look, Jeff is a fantastic card, but it is a little niche, and a lot of times, anytime he's in a deck, someone says, well, how do you replace Jeff? And there's almost always a solution to it. Might not be as good as Jeff, but you can always find a replacement. And honestly, Ghost Spider isn't that great, and Null, solid, but he was just there for a week that we're going to talk about in a little bit, and unless you play Destroy, I think this is a week that you don't necessarily really need. I love Jeff, I want Jeff, but I'm not going to save spotlight caches for this particular week. The next one in the good niche section is the week of 8/22. This has X23 in it. When this is discarded or destroyed, regenerate it at a random location and you get +1 energy next turn. So what I like about this is that you could use it 1 on the board or 2 in your hand. Like you might pair it up with Silver Samurai, but then it gets some weaknesses as far as the Muramasa sword goes. So I'd be a little careful there, but it's not bad. The part that I don't love about it is the fact that it goes to a random location, which might be a spot you're not going to destroy, but you're probably going to play a Killmonger on it, and plus energy, that's huge. Getting more energy each turn, that's huge. It's an Electro without the downside. We've also got Nebula, which is one of the best 1-cost card in the game, and Silk, which is a great cost to power ratio. A little bit of an annoying card because it's a random location, but it can win you certain locations. I think this is one of the better weeks out there. It is a little niche with the Silk and X23. Nebula by herself could almost bump this card up. The last one I've got in good niche, which arguably could be swapped with the X23 set, is the 718 this week. We've got Echo, Iron Lad, and Kang. Now, I have to admit, I'm going to open for this, but only because I don't have Iron Lad. And if I draw Iron Lad, I might consider stopping. I already have Kang. Kang is not a good big bad. I've already got a variant for him. Echo, I do want to play with, mainly to see if I can get a hella deck working that can just not be Cosmo. But gosh, that feels so niche. And if it doesn't work, to use my spotlights on that feels really, really bad. But I think Iron Lad is used in so many top tier pro type decks that having him would be very, very helpful. Next up, we've got the solid group. The first card I want to mention in here is the Ravana Renslayer card. This could drop to good niche, but I think she could be a generally decent card you could throw in any deck that has those cards that do have one or less power. So it's kind of like, man, maybe this isn't a bad card to throw in there, but I could see her dropping. I definitely wouldn't move her any higher. Next up in this section, I've got the week of 725. This is Legion, High Evolutionary, and Darkhawk. And like I mentioned, this could be a set that you would put in save for if you don't have High Evolutionary or Darkhawk, because those are two really, really good cards in the game and both meta tier decks. Next, I've got the 829 Spotlight, and I have to justify why this one's here. It's Silver Samurai, Kitty Pryde, and Spider-Man 2099. Now, I will admit Spider-Man 2099 is very niche, not a great card, so let's put that one off to the side. Kitty Pryde is a top tier card right now. Bounce might get nerfed, could get nerfed in the next few days. So if she specifically gets nerfed, I would drop this. If only Bounce gets nerfed and she stays by herself, you can still have Angela and Kitty in a deck on its own and still be a really, really strong deck. So I still look at her as a top tier card, assuming she doesn't directly get nerfed. Silver Samurai. Okay, so this is my thought on keeping this here. Is you've got Dakin that with Silver Samurai becomes a 713 because you play Dakin at a 3-4, then you've got your Muramasa's Shard. You play Silver Samurai, which is a 4-5. So now that becomes a 713 play, which isn't bad. But remember, Silver Samurai also discards something from your opponent, which means Stature has good use here and becomes a 1-6, making this an 8-19 play. That is a ton of points. And it's not like you have to have Silver Samurai and Dakin in a specific destroy deck. You can have those three cards in any sort of deck that you want to combo with something else. Dakin's a 3-cost card. I mean, maybe you've got room in your Surfer deck. It's like, look, this is a good power play somewhere. I'm going to drop this here. I don't know if that's a great idea, but it's a thought. 819, no matter how you cut it, is a good play. All right, next up and last in the solid section is the week of 8-1, the first week of August. We've got Mirage, Thanos, and Master Mold. And I will tell you up front, I originally had this in the good niche section, but honestly, Thanos alone carries. He carries this, and I think some people might be sleeping on Mirage a little bit. White Queen is still a great card. Mirage is in a similar mold there. So because of that reason, I had this in the solid section. Master Mold, he can be annoying. Maybe he has a certain spot, but look, Thanos is so strong, he can carry decks all by himself. All right, so the save for section. I'm actually going to start off with the Gene spot here, mainly because I firmly believe that after Bounce maybe gets hit a little bit, that the Gene card will become stronger. I think that she's a solid but not overly powerful card. Now, could she drop? Yeah, maybe, but I just think to control somebody a little bit, Gene can be really good. If you argued she needs to be in solid, I would not sit there and hard argue against you. But if there was a card better than Living Tribunal in this, I'd say you're maybe a little bit off base there. But more importantly, Alioth, Mobius. So I've listed these two cards. We mentioned what they did earlier. These two cards could be amazing later. Alioth for sure, like straight up will win you lanes. I think that he could absolutely be awesome. Hey, guess what you could pair up with Alioth? Absorbing Man. Oh my gosh, turn 5 Alioth, turn 6 Absorbing Man. Are you friggin' kidding me? Like, you just won 2 lanes. So at that point in the game, against Bounce, guess what? It doesn't matter. Play good cards early, play those last two turns, you're good to go. Mobius M. Mobius, I think, is a great card that if he is able to defend against Wave, is really strong. You could use Wave for your advantage, or it will keep your opponent from using it against you. I just think that that's a week that you're definitely going to want to target or potentially save for. So that's what we got. hoarding, and that's the tier list for caches. It was sort of integrated a little bit, so I wanted to do a little bit of a combined video. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. If you found any of this helpful, please consider hammering down that like button. If you want to help support the channel, there's the join section on YouTube, Discord linked in the description below. And until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day.